Hello guys, welcome back. So in this video, I'll be talking about substring method in Java. So first, I'm going to cover substring methods that is available in our Java API. So let me tell you that there are two different substring method available in our Java API, and we'll be writing a lot of code here, and we will do some examples to have some good understanding on this. Alright, and once we are done with that, we'll talk about different exceptions that we might get whenever we are working with our substring methods. Alright, and at the end of this tutorial, I'll just tell you when substring method will not create a new object. So these are the few basic things that you have to understand about substring method, and that's what we're going to learn in the video number 1. Alright, so once we understand these things, in the next video we'll be covering substring method internal implementation and the memory leak issue that we used to have in Java 6. So there are some code improvement has done in Java 7 related to substring method, and it is one of the most important interview questions. So we'll be prepared on that in the next video, and we'll also be talking about some of the coding interview questions in the upcoming videos, right? So before we understand these things, let's first understand the basics. Okay, so now let's create a string here. So I'm creating a string object here. String str is equal to Selenium Express. So you know that we can create a string object by using two different ways. We can create a string object by using a double quote, just like I did over here, or we can also create a string object by using a new keyword. We can use the new keyword, and we can use a string class constructor to create a new object, isn't it? Okay, so whenever we create any kind of object in Java, that's stored somewhere, right? The objects are also getting stored somewhere in the memory, and that memory is heap memory. So any kind of objects in Java that stores inside the heap memory. Okay, so whenever we create a string object also, it goes to the heap memory. Okay, so in this case I'm using double quote. So whenever we create a string object by using double quote, it goes to string pool, and string pool is again a part of heap, right? So anyhow, the objects are getting stored inside the heap only. Okay, so whenever we create any string, the string is actually a sequence of characters, isn't it? So S is a character, E is a character, L is a character, like that, right? So it's a sequence of characters, and the string internally uses a character array to store all its characters, right? So all these characters here in the string is actually stored inside a char array, right, in the memory. So just imagine this is actually a char array, and obviously the array index starts from 0, and in this case it goes up to 15, right? So if you see over here, as the array index starts from 0 and it goes up to 15 in this case, so 0 to 15 is 16 number. So the length of this particular string is 16. So I can say the length is equal to 16. That means there is 16 number of characters present here in this entire string. Okay, so now let's talk about the substring method. So whenever I want a part of this string, so this is a string, I want some part of this string. Let's say I want only Express, or I want only Selenium, or I want Selenium, or I want Selenium Express. I want some part of this original string. At that time I can use the substring method. So let's talk about the first method of the substring here. So if I do a substring operation here, let's say str.substring of 1. So that means here what I want is I want to fetch all the characters starting from the first index till the end index. So JVM is going to start fetching the characters from the first index all the way to the last index, and it is going to create a new string here called Selenium Express. Okay, because I have given an instruction here to start fetching it from the first index. Okay, so why I said it is going to create a new string here. So we know that string is immutable, right? If we want to change, or if we want to modify the existing string, is actually going to create a new string, right? So we have already understood that in my previous videos. So string is immutable. So whenever we are performing a substring operation also, it is going to create a new string here called Selenium Express, right? So in the memory again, this is a new string object. So again, it is going to be stored inside an char array just like this, 0, to 14th index, all the characters are going to be stored here in this character array, right? Okay, so right now what we understood, it is really basic. Right now let's understand all these things practically. So let me switch to Eclipse here. Alright guys, so now as you can see over here, I do have a very simple class called subdemo, and I have a main method here. So now let me create a string here, like we did in the slide. Let's say string str is equal to Selenium express, and right now it will create a new string object for us. Right now I want to get a part of a string from the first index. From this is the 0th index, this is the first index. So from the first index I want to get all the string, I mean all the characters till the last index, right? So I'll say str.substring. So I want to use this method, and actually I'll pass the begin index here 1. Okay, so right now it will fetch all the characters, it will construct a new string, and I want to store this string with a new string object, let's say str1. Okay, there you go. And I just want to print this str1 so that I can check the result. All right, so if I run this application, what will be the expected output? Obviously it's going to start fetching the characters from here, so my answer will be Selenium Express. So let me run this application, and there you go, I'm getting Selenium Express as an output. So now let me see what is happening internally. Okay, how many objects are getting created, how all these string objects are getting stored in the memory. The reason why I'm going to do it, because that's going to come really beneficial when I'm going to explain you about some advanced concept like the memory leak and all these things, right? So let's put a breakpoint here in the line number 7, and now let me debug this application. I'll say yes, and there you go. So I got my full debug screen here. I'm in the line number 7. So let me execute this line by doing the step upper, or by pressing the F6 here. So you can see a string object is getting created, and whatever the content I'm storing over here, Selenium Express, it's just giving me that particular content. But if I'll expand this str here, we can see there is a field called value here, and as you can see, this value is actually an char array. Okay, so the way this value is storing all the characters inside it by using an char array, right? So if I will expand it, we can see there is a char array present over here. It starts from the index 0, it goes up to 15, it's storing all the characters here. Okay, and finally I'm getting my entire string, which is Selenium Express. Okay, so now let's execute this substring method here. Okay, so my control is on line number 8, so I'm going to press step over again, and there you go, I got my str1 reference. That means a new object got created, and as you can see, this str1 is holding Selenium Express. That means the substring value, right? And if I will expand this str1, again I'll get my value array, which is storing my substring here, which is Selenium Express. So a new string object is getting created, and the value, if I'll expand here, we can see it is storing all this value by using an char array again. And this is what I wanted to show you, that the substring operation is actually creating a new string object. All right. Okay, so there we go. So this is really simple. This is the basic introduction. Right now let's switch back to our presentation. Alright guys, so now this is a task for you. Let's say I have the same string here called Selenium Express, and we have seen how it is stored in the memory by using an char array. And let's say I want to fetch Express from here, right? From this complete string, I want to form a new string called Express, right? So how can I do it? Obviously I have to perform a substring operation, and I have to pass the begin index as 9, so that this is going to point to the begin index, which is 9, and from the begin index 9 it will go up to the 15, and it will create a new string called Express. Very simple, right? And this is how it is going to store in the memory, right? Okay, so now let's do it really quick. I will just remove this statement, and I'm going to change this 1 to 9, so that I'll get my desired output, which is Express. So you can count these things over here: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the space is 8. So is ninth index, so I want to get all the characters right from the ninth index, so I put here 9, and if I'll do a sys out here, and if I'll print str1, and if I'll save it, and if I will run it again, then you can see I'm getting express here as an output, right? Okay, so now let's go for the second substring method that we have in the Java API. So we have two different substring methods present inside our Java API. Now let's go for the second one, and the second one is a little bit tricky, but trust me, we're going to make it really simple. So let's go for that. Alright guys, so now let's talk about the second method which is available in the Java API to calculate a substring over a given string. So as you can see over here, this substring method, two arguments here, one is begin index and one is end index, right? So we can actually pass two different arguments to this particular substring method. And obviously this substring method will return you a new string that is a substring of the current string. Okay, so let's get into it. So let's go with our same example that we have seen in our last slide. Okay, so I'm creating a string here called Selenium Express, and over this string object str, I'm actually going to perform a substring operation. And before that, this is how the Selenium Express is going to be represented in the memory in form of a char array, and we have already covered it. Okay, so right now the r index starts from 0, and in this case it goes up to 15, and I want to fetch Selenium here. Suppose this is a complete string and I want to fetch only Selenium here, right? So in this case I have to use the second overloaded method of the substring which is available in the API. So let's say I'm using the substring method over the string str, and I'm saying substring of 0 and 7. That means this 0 is the begin index and the 7 is the end index. That means we can expect that it is going to fetch us Selenium as an output. I mean, it is going to fetch this Selenium from this complete string, because this is what we are providing in the argument. Let's see what is going to be the output. Okay, so if we'll run this particular program, it is going to give you this as an output. You can see there is a m missing over here. It is only fetching the characters till the 6th index, right? Till the 6th index here. It's not fetching the character up to 7th index. And what is the reason for that? Okay, so here you have to remember a very important thing, that whenever you're performing the substring operation by passing in two different arguments, you have to remember the first argument, which is begin index, that is inclusive. That means you are mentioning here 0 means it is going to start picking characters from the 0th index only, right? But if you talk about the end index, that is exclusive, right? And what I mean by that, the end index is always going to be the end index minus 1. For an example, if you are going to specify here 7, then it is not going to pick the characters till the 7th index. Instead, it is going to do minus 1 with this particular index. So 7 minus 1, which is 6, so it is going to pick the characters till the 6th index. So this is the reason why you are getting this as an output. Why we are not getting the entire desired string Selenium here. That's because the end index is always exclusive, right? I mean, that's the way the substring method works, and we're going to talk about it in a bit. We're going to see how it is working internally, right? But before that, let me perform the same thing here in the IDE, and let's see, let's do a couple of examples with this particular method of substring. Okay, so let's get into it. All right, so now let's start doing it practically. So I'm going to create a new string here called Selenium Express, and once I'm done with that, I'm actually going to perform a substring operation over this string. So str.substring, and I'm going to use this method here, and I'm going to pass the begin index as 0 because I'm going to fetch the word Selenium from this entire string. Okay, so let's first try to fetch 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, let me write 7 here because the m is having the 7th index. So right now if I'll save it and if I'll store it over a new string, so let's say string str equal to str.substring, and if I'll do a sys out here with str1, okay, let's say str1, I'm sorry, and now if I'm going to run it, you can check this out, what I'm going to get as the output here. So I'm getting the output here. I'm not getting m here, right? The m is missing, right? So what is actually the reason that I have already told you the end index is always exclusive. For an example, if I want to capture the 7th index also, then I need to give the end index as 8, right? So I'm going to mention here 8, right? So right now it is going to give us our desired output, which is Selenium, right? So this is how the things works here. Alright guys, so now let's quickly do another example here, and let's understand a new thing, that how Java is actually calculating the length of a substring. Okay, so let's take the same string here, string str equal to Selenium express, and let's say this is how the things are getting stored in the memory. And if I want to perform a substring operation by passing the begin index as 3 and the end index as 11, then what is going to be my output? So it's very simple to guess, right? So this is my begin index and this is my end index. And we understood in the last slide that the end index is always going to be the end index minus 1. That means we are specifying 11 here. That means it is going to be capturing the character till the 10th index, right? So the output is going to be ENIUM space then EX, right? Okay, so now if I'll tell you to calculate the substring length, then how you are going to calculate it? So the way Java is going to calculate the length of the substring, it uses a formula. So that is end index minus begin index. So in this case, our end index is 11 and our begin index is 3. So 11 minus 3 is 8, right? So the substring length is 8, right? So if you'll calculate it normally, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, space is 6, then 7 and 8, right? There are 8 number of characters present in the substring, right? But this is how Java calculates the length of the substring. Okay, so now let's quickly do it in the Eclipse. Alright guys, so now let's change this begin index here to 3 and this end index here to 11. So I'm just modifying my previous program here. And as we have understood in the last slide, it is going to calculate the string from the third index. So 0, 1 and 2. So E is the third index. So third, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11. But it is not going to calculate up to the 11th index. Rather it is going to calculate up to the 10th index. So this is going to be my output. So let me save it and let me run it. And we can see we are getting the exact same output here. ENIUM space EX, right? So there we go. And how Java calculates the substring length, we're going to see that in a bit. Okay, don't worry about it. Alright guys, so now let's understand what things that you need to keep in mind whenever you are working with the substring method. Otherwise you'll get string index out of bound exception. Okay, so let's talk about our first scenario, but first let me create a string here. Let me take a different string here called hello, right? And let's say if I'll perform a substring operation over this string hello, and if I'll pass the negative index here -1, then I'm going to get an exception, right? So the reason for that is, the begin index cannot be negative, right? It should be 0 or more than that, but not negative, right? So let's talk about another scenario here. Let's talk about this scenario, str.substring of 50. So in this case also, you are going to get an exception. The reason for that, here 50, we do not have an index here called 50, right? So the maximum number you can pass over here is the length of the string. For example, here the length of the string is 5. So you can maximum pass here 5 as a number, right? But not more than that. Otherwise you are going to get string index out of bounds exception. Alright. So let's talk about a different case here. If I'm taking a substring here by passing in 3 and 1, you can see the begin index is greater than the end index, right? And in this case also, you are going to get string index out of bounds exception. Alright. And now the one last thing. What if we're passing str.length over here? So str.length is, let's say our string length is 5 here. So if I'll pass 5, are you going to get an exception over here? Not at all, right? You are going to get an empty string. Okay, so that's how the substring method works. Okay, so we are going to cover it whenever we'll talk about the internal implementation of substring method. Okay, so now let me quickly go to Eclipse here. Alright, so already we have written few lines of code over here. So right now let's get started with by putting the begin index as -1. So as you have understand, the begin index cannot be -1, and in that case we are going to get a string index out of bound exception. And also if I'm going to pass an index which is never exist, let's say 20 here or 50, let's say 20 here, and if I'll compile this particular program, if I'll run it, we are again going to get a string index out of bound exception. And in the same way, if I'm going to pass here let's say 3 as a begin index and 1 as a end index, so in this time also you are going to get an string index out of bound exception. But what if I'm going to pass here str.length, right? So the length of this particular string is 15. Okay, so let's make it a smaller string. Let's say hello here. Okay, so now the length of this particular string is 5, and if I'm also passing your 5, then also I'm not going to get any exception here, rather I'm going to get an empty string. Okay, so let me quickly show you this, that this is returning you an empty string. So let me put a breakpoint here in the line number 8. I'll just do a simple debug here. I'll say yes, and now my control is on line number 8. I'll do a step over to execute it. The str is getting created, and you can see it's containing an empty string here. Alright guys, so before I wrap up this particular session, there is one last thing that I want to tell you guys. So here if I'll do a substring operation over this str by passing 1 and 4 as the argument, obviously we know it is going to create a different string for us. Okay, so if I will just print out str1 here, then what the answer we're going to get over here, EEL, right? So because I want to pick these 3 things, right? Alright, but my question is, for an example, if this str1 is creating a different object, then this str and str1 should be different, right? So the result I should get is false, because this str is a different object and str1 is a different object, right? And obviously the answer I'll get over here is false, right? Because whenever we're performing a substring operation, it's creating a new string. Alright, so that's why I'm getting false over here. But what if, okay, I'll just tell you one more thing here. Let's say here I'm passing 0 as an index, as in begin index, and here I'll pass the end index as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to pick O as well, so 5. So I'll do what? I'll pass here 5, so 0 and 5. So if I'll comment this particular line out, what this str1 will give it to me? Obviously it is going to start picking from the number, the begin index 0, and it will go up to 5th index. So it will pick H, E, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm taking one more 5 just to get this O as well, right? So I'll get the complete string here, hello, right? So that's what I'm getting as an output. str1 is giving me hello. So here if I will print this particular thing here, str is equal to str1. So actually I want to check this str and str1 is 2 different objects or a same object. So here I am performing a substring operation, and what we understood that a substring operation should create a new string, and if that's the case, the str and str1 should be different, right? The str should be a different object and str1 should be a different object, because this string is immutable and substring operation will give you a new string. So in that case, so I'm checking the reference, so str and str1 should be different, and they should be false in this particular case. But if I run this application, I'm going to see what here I'm getting true as an output. So just make sure that whenever you are asking for the original string, so here I'm performing a substring operation, but actually I'm asking for the original string. So in that case, Java is not going to create a new string here, rather it will just return you the same string, the current string object, right? So here the current string is hello, so it is going to return you hello here also, because you are just asking for the same string by passing the begin index as 0 and the end index is the length of the string, which will actually give you the original string here, right? Okay, so this is one more thing that you need to remember, and how this thing is happening internally. We are going to talk about it in the next tutorial, so don't forget to watch the next tutorial, because in the next tutorial I'm going to talk about the most important interview question that we guys might face in the interview, and we're going to talk about the memory leak issue, and we're going to talk about the code improvement has done in Java 7, and what are the changes made in Java 7, and how our current version of substring method is different than the older version of the substring method, right? So we'll be talking about a whole lot of things right there in the next tutorial, so don't forget to watch that. You can find the link in the description. Thank you very much guys for watching, and hopefully you'll have a wonderful day. Have a good time guys. Bye bye.